Any responses?
Also come off mute and try talking as well if you like. There we go. Thank you, Stephanie.
Perfect. Thank you. It's good to get the feedback. All right. Well, welcome everyone to our May meeting of the Minnesota BI User Group. Get my screen share going here and we will start with our slides. All right. So we got a big day today. We got a lot of stuff to cover. Let's start out with our welcome. All right, so agenda for the day. Oh, and I see a typo right off the bat. I didn't update it to May. So we are at the May meeting, not the March meeting. But thank you all for coming out. So we're going to start out, talk about just our purpose, our code of conduct on the first part here. We've got a guest speaker today, one of our members, Mark Salisbury from the University of St. Thomas. He's going to talk with us about a program that he is kicking off there to give some BI students some hands-on skills development while they are in school. And hopefully pay back to some organizations in the community here. So excited to hear from him. We've got what's new in the Power BI world there, which today is going to be all about FabCon. So I got my FabCon t-shirt. I know you probably can't see me. We don't have the camera on in here, I don't think. But I'm going to talk FabCon, kind of the big announcements, what came out. There's been a lot of stuff even since FabCon that's gone from private preview into public preview. So we're going to talk on that. We've got a couple cool little demos. Then we're going to jump into a case study from Jay Wardle on Power Automate. So he's going to show us a solution he put together, and then we'll talk about some upcoming events and some other things happening. So lots of stuff to do. So reason for our existence, if this is your first time joining us, we are the Minnesota Microsoft Business Intelligence User Group. So we are focused on the Microsoft BI stack, everything from Azure all the way through to Power BI and Fabric and kind of everything in between. So Power Platform, we're going to have Power Automate content today, but a little bit of everything. So if you ever want to share your knowledge or if you have a good case study or something, definitely reach out. We're always looking for speakers to come and contribute, kind of share what they're working on, what tools they're using, what neat stuff they're doing in the space. So give us a shout. Check out our website. I've got a couple links at the end to our website and to our LinkedIn page as well. So you can reach out to us via that if you have any ideas. Then I'll leave this one up for a moment here. This is our current board. So I won't read everybody's names to you, but you can connect us on LinkedIn, ping us on social. I'm on a couple other platforms as well. But if you ever want to get involved with the group, if you want to speak, if you just want to attend, if you just questions, ideas, any of that kind of stuff, feel free to reach out to any of us. We're trying to make this group a little more lively in 2025 and always looking for ideas on how we can engage with people a little more. So. All right, with that, I'll invite Mark to come up. And he's got a couple slides for us.
You gonna let me click on my own, or
yeah, I was gonna say
do it for me?
If you want to drive the clicker.
Okay. All right. I'm Mark Salisbury. I'm with the University of St. Thomas, and I currently teach a class. Yeah, I thought I'd just click here. Oh, sure, the big button. Yeah, that's a trick, I can tell.
There's a lot of
Yeah, this is a new class. It's been a topics class. I'm still teaching as a topics class this semester. But it's around advanced business intelligence development. It's for our computer science majors and for our data science. We have a new data science major at St. Thomas. These are undergrads, but basically it's for people.
Or me.
Oh, okay. Anyway, it's a class for people who are in their junior and senior year at St. Thomas. And we call it advanced business intelligence. So it's like, what do you do if you're a software person and you join a team that's going to be building some kind of business intelligence applications? And so if you're that person, then you kind of bring some software engineering to this. And so that's kind of what it's about and for what it is for them. And so we just said that. And here's what we cover in the course. We do advanced data modeling. And so we will be doing some DAX programming. And then we also do some AI and machine learning. We do have the out-of-the-box stuff, but we also do Azure. And we do those, and that's all part of projects that they're doing, which takes us to this. Really what we want to do is we want to build full Power BI applications. And what we want to do too is I'm not fighting with our students over using ChatGPT or any tools. I'm just saying, look, this is what we do with student projects. Here's what I want you to do with tools, right? And so that's kind of what we're trying to do. So they can use basically Copilot to help them write DAX, also to write some of the Python visualizations. And as I think everyone knows in this room, it doesn't always work, right? There's a ton of learning going on to actually make ChatGPT code actually work. So we're not fighting that. We're trying to bring this up to kind of a professional level project. So that's what we're trying to do. So one of the things I tell my students is that, documentation, right, is important too. In fact, it might actually be more important than the code because basically you can be part of a team and then your work lives on beyond you and you can actually collaborate with a lot of other people. So I support the idea of using Copilot or ChatGPT to help them write their documentation. Again, we're trying to take a student project and make it at the professional level. So that's kind of what I'm doing with this class. What I'm trying to pitch to you today is some kind of collaboration and to hopefully get people interested in what we're doing at St. Thomas and to be able to partner with folks. And here's what we can do is we can deliver actual work and free of charge that will be helpful. And the key benefits of this would be that students gain hands-on experience, practical experience, and you get some work done for you. And so that's one of the things I tried to do in this course. I worked at the Boeing company for 11 years before I did my academic journey. And so I know a little bit about how you bring value to a project, which I think a lot of people in this room realize it isn't just about studying, but it's how do you bring value. And so that's what kind of we want to be able to do. And so this is going to be our contribution. And so we think that this is going to be a good collaboration that will help our students be able to know what's going on out here. It'll allow people in this room and out there to hear my voice, some of the opportunities that our students might provide your organizations. So that's my pitch, and I'm going to stick with it then. Do I have time for questions or anything?
Yeah, anybody in the room have questions or?
Any questions?
How do you select your use cases, your projects?
So right now we're doing student projects, right? And so I allow them to go out on Kaggle and we pick these and then we talk about, okay, how can you move this to the next level? Because what it is with business intelligence applications is that it's not like, oh, you have a perfect little data set. So this will just take about 10 minutes then to do some advanced visualizations and we're done. No, it's like a really ugly thing where somebody comes in the room and goes, we were hoping that you could help us with this idea of being able to discover new markets in the southeast part of the United States. Where's your data? Well, we don't really have any data, right? We don't have any data. We would like you to make some, right? And so we have, we talk about the whole, process of a project and how really about 80% of it is all that front work, really getting your data. So it's that last, you click on the visualization, you drag a couple things down there and you see it. That's really about less than 1% of the work. So that's where we're at now. So we're making this up, so they have real projects. But as you probably already gleaned, it would be much better to actually work on a real project. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, keep it in mind. I brought these little cards. I don't know if anyone under 40 has ever seen these. They used to call them business cards. And so it has my contact information on it. So if you want one, I can give it to you. And then you can show people at parties what people used to do. Thank you for your time.
All right, perfect. And we do have Mark's contact info in the slides here, and we'll try to get that out on our LinkedIn page and everything as well.
Yeah.
If you'd like to reach out to Mark with any questions or if you know any organizations that would be a great fit.
Okay.
Got a few folks joining.
I had a quick gas check.
Get those checked in. Back over to our slides. Okay. So now we're going to dive into FabCon. So anybody else in the room at FabCon other than myself and Ryan? I know Nick rocking the FabCon t-shirt along with me. Anybody else make it out there? Nobody? All right, maybe next year. Maybe we'll have a big we'll have a big Minnesota contingent out there. There's a decent representation this year, but if you're not familiar, FabCon is the Microsoft Fabric Community Conference. This year it was right at the beginning of April. I think April, like March 31st through April 2nd or 3rd or something. But big conference out in Vegas. This year there was over 6,500 people there. Huge contingent from Microsoft. A lot of the MVPs come into there. And it's 3 days of presentations, keynotes, everything Fabric all day long. So if you want to get deeply immersed into the world or learn about some maybe pieces of Fabric or even Power BI and some areas you haven't spent much time in, it's a great experience. There's workshops before and after. I did a workshop beforehand this year that was all about direct lake semantic modeling and how to kind of maintain them. So got a ton of content out of that one. My colleague Ryan, who's here with us today, he went to one on some of the new AI tools that are coming out. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But yeah, it was great. FabCon 25 in the books. We know Nick was there. So some top highlights. Just got a couple photos that'll pop up here in a moment. So the keynote this year was at T-Mobile Arena where the Golden Knights play. So if you're watching them, yeah, big Fabric logo all over the place, and there was pretty cool to see. You can see the conference's sessions there. So this is just one of the sessions that took place, and then there were rooms this big going on all day long. The Fabric sneakers, I don't know if Will got a pair, but they were
No swag for me this year.
yeah, they were tough to get, but they were all over the place on a lot of the MVPs and the speakers. And then they had the first Power BI Data Viz World Championship this year. So there were 4 finalists who had won in the online portion of it. They came, built a presentation live in front of an overflow crowd. I don't know how many people were in the room, but I know we were sitting on the floor in the back because the place was packed. But it was pretty impressive to watch them just assemble their data visualization in, I think they had 20 minutes to do it in the room. But the amount of just UI, UX stuff they were able to put in there, I mean, they had bookmarks, they had buttons, they had drill through, like everything they were able to include in that amount of time just kind of blew my mind. I'd have like one bar graph formatted on the page in that amount of time. So pretty cool. And there's Ryan and I in front of the giant FabCon letters. Had to do the obligatory selfie. But yeah, lots of fun announcements out there. So we'll just dive right into some of the big ones that came out. One Lake Security. So this one, when Fabric was first announced, going back almost 2 full years now, it was called One Security. It was a big splash. It was a big piece of the announcement, and then it sort of just faded away. It didn't come up. There was a couple of conferences that came and went. There wasn't much chatter about it. It was kind of interesting at the deep dive presentation I went to because they acknowledged that right off the bat. The people building it said, yeah, we know we promised this stuff and then we disappear, but here we are and here it's coming. So some great stuff that's already out there in private preview. So I've got a link coming up, I think, on my next slide. If you are in Fabric, if you're on the trial or if you're testing some things in your organization, you can join this private preview and kind of start putting it through the paces. We got linked up with our sandbox environment, and so I've started kind of poking at it, dabbling at it a little bit, but haven't built out any deep demos. But essentially what we gain with this is that when Fabric came out, you still had to manage security kind of all over the place. You could manage it on the lakehouse, you could manage it on the model, you could manage it on all the different items and artifacts. What this does is it allows you to define it right at the One Lake level. So where your data comes into Fabric, you can set that security. You can do row level, column level, there's some object level, but whatever you set there in terms of roles and permissions will translate through to all of the different workloads in Fabric. So instead of having to have all these layers and all these places where you're trying to manage this, it's going to roll through and it's going to maintain that data security throughout your environment. So that's the promise. You can create custom roles. So if you have, very niche use cases in your organization, you can set that up. You can control the permissions to a very granular level. And then all of that's going to be visible from, I think I got it here. Yeah, from the One Lake catalog. So there's a new tab in One Lake catalog where you can go and you can see your users, who has access to what, kind of just get an eagle's eye view of what's going on in your tenant. So A lot of great stuff. Next slide here kind of shows, in the past, down here where, you see the Spark, the T-SQL, KQL, analysis services. I mean, we were kind of managing security at all those different places in the past. Now you manage it right at that one lake level. So right where your data lives, that's where you can manage it. Then you can just enforce that consistently across all of those different engines. So if you give somebody permission to access to a lakehouse, they can use it, whether they're over in real time, they can pull it into the machine learning side of things. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the AI tools and what's coming down the pipe on that. But you can control access to that right there. So the keynote from FabCon is out on YouTube now. So the sessions from FabCon, unfortunately, weren't recorded, but the keynote's out there and a couple other kind of short things I think are out there that the community put together. But inside of the keynote, they did a demonstration on the row level and column level. So Patrick from GuideCube, his enthusiasm can show you kind of quickly through the paces. Here we go. So a couple of known limitations. So a couple things, cross-region shortcuts don't work. Inside of Power BI, only the new direct lake on one lake. So it's a new kind of pure direct lake semantic model format is the only place where it'll carry through. So there are a couple of kind of things that you have to keep in mind. So if you are going to try this inside your org, there might be a couple of gaps today. There might be some things that you need to kind of test before you roll it out. Obviously, being in preview, you probably don't want to throw anything super sensitive or production at it. But definitely check it out. We got the link right here. So I don't have the QR code, but if you snag this link, the AKAMS/One Lake Security Preview, I believe they're still popping people into there. I think when I applied, by like the end of the week, I got it. So I think on kind of a weekly cycle, they add you into there. So when you do that, you have to give them your tenant ID, workspace IDs. There's a couple of details that you need, but pretty quick form to fill out. So check it out. Would love to hear more about that. If anybody does anything cool with it, let me know. We'd love to see some case studies or kind of how you're using it at a future session. So, all right, Copilot and AI. Talked about this one a little bit. So big news at this one, which kind of leaked out right before the keynote, but prior to April, the only way to get to the AI agents, Copilot, all that fun stuff was to be at an F64 SKU or higher. But starting in April, they rolled it out to all regions. So now every paid F SKU gets all of the fun AI stuff. It gets Copilot. So whether you're on an F2 or an F1028, you get access to all those different things. So we did confirm this morning that it does have to be a paid SKU. It does not work on the free trial. So we actually had to spin up in our sandbox a paid F2 just to do some demos and things like that. But if you're in that position where you have that, or if you're on premium, you're already in the money, so to say. But you can check it out. So it's exciting. And another new thing that this was pre-FabCon, this launched in January. But I know one of the concerns with Copilot is that if you kind of unleash your users on it, they can eat up your compute capacity pretty quickly with that if you have some very avid users who are throwing things at it. So the nice thing is that now you can designate one of your capacities as your Fabric Copilot capacity. And so what that means is that across your tenant, all your Copilot workload will be charged to that one capacity. So if you want to kind of put a cap on it or something, you could spin up a smaller SKU, kind of segment out that work so that, over where you're doing semantic modeling and, report refreshing and report serving or machine learning and all that stuff, it's not going to impact that and get you throttled. So check that out. I see Dan English has dropped some things in the chats. Thank you, Dan, for clarifying. Perfect. He's dropping links on the spot. But check that out. It's a nice way to sort of segment that workload out and make sure that you don't get in any trouble with your production workspaces. And then there was a lot of chatter, and this is where I haven't had a chance to play around with it too much, but some pretty cool integrations with Azure AI Foundry so that you can work on grounding your AI data agents. So this is the whole talk to your data kind of setup that you can do. But there's some more tooling that's out there so that you can give it some test queries. It'll tell you what information it's using to return results, and then you can kind of fine tune that. So if you have a data agent with access to a lakehouse, maybe it queries against the wrong table when it's trying to get customer info, you can say, no, use this one instead. So there's some ways that you can kind of control what that output's going to look like. But all right. Semantic modeling, shifting gears over here. So there was a lot of chatter about Direct Lake. Anybody using Direct Lake models today? Got a hand in the back. All right, perfect. So yeah, another one. Perfect. So, Direct Lake has been out since Fabric came out, but there's been a couple of limitations. So it's kind of Direct Lake, but if you hit some guardrails, it would fall back to the SQL endpoint. There were some security concerns with how that flowed through. So it's kind of been Direct Lake V1, I guess you could say. So today, we've got that diagram at the bottom shows what Direct Lake looks like. The one up above is the one that a lot of us are probably using, import mode, which is kind of the other big one. Oh, Dan put a plug in for build next week. So this is kind of today. Future state, there's Direct Lake on one lake. So kind of true Direct Lake on one lake. I've seen a couple different terminologies, but essentially what this one does is takes that SQL endpoint out of the mix. So now you're true Direct Lake, you're talking to your data that's in one lake. And then even further down the road, and this one, I don't know if this one's even in private preview quite yet, but eventually there's going to be the ability to blend an import model or import queries with stuff that you have in one lake and get a Direct Lake and import sort of blended composite model. So that's another thing that folks have been asking for. So, if you've got your transactional data that you want to have closer to, real time, near real time, you could essentially partition out your model, have that stuff there, but then have your dimensions that maybe you only process, say, once a day or something. So it's just more options to kind of divide things out. So I think on maybe this page, Marco Russo has a great column that's out there on SQL BI. So if you jump out there and take a look at his FabCon recap, he covered a couple of these scenarios, and then he also did a deep dive on the true Direct Lake at FabCon. And I think he's put some of that out via blog posts. There's been some on LinkedIn. So if you check him out, he's got a ton of information about what's coming down the pipe for that. Semantic model version history. So we talked about this one last time in March. We kind of looked at a little demo on that one. But this is right in your workspace, the ability to have a version history of your semantic models that you can do commit messages, you can roll back. There's a couple of caveats to it, but this is coming soon to pro workspaces. I haven't, to be honest, looked to see if it's out there quite yet, but it seemed to imply that it was going to be coming soon. So check that out. If you're not using any other kind of CI/CD or anything, it might be a good way to get at least a couple of those checkpoints. I think it only keeps like 5 or something, but it's something. So it's, that's one piece that in our consulting world, we get asked about version control and CI/CD for Power BI, for as long as I've been working with the tool. So it's nice to see some of these things coming out right natively in the workspace right there. So you're not having to do workarounds or use any kind of external tools or anything. So a new option. This one is live out there. I think you have to turn it on in your preview mode, but you can create and edit Direct Lake models from Power BI Desktop. So in the past, this you could only do from the web interface. So this is another big win. A lot of us in the room probably use Power BI Desktop pretty regularly. We're comfortable in the tool. This is a nice way to kind of work within your tool and not have to jump out to that web interface all the time. Materialized views on Lakehouse. So this was announced. Oddly enough, we were talking about it like the day before FabCon about, gosh, wouldn't it be nice if this was coming down the pipe, and then there it was, but not a lot of news on it yet. So I don't know. I know we got build coming up next week. Maybe we'll learn a little more on this one, but just more and more options appearing on how to position your data, how to consume your data in the way that makes sense for you out there. Oh yeah, there we go. So there's the Marco Russo. That's the title of the blog post from April 4th, 2025. But he's got a lot of great stuff in there. Some of the graphics here I snagged from him too. So I want to give him credit for the great stuff he does for the community. Okay, next one. So model health. And this one kind of stealth rolled out right before FabCon. I noticed it was out there. But if you jump out to your workspace and go into your semantic model view, you can see there's a new tab at the top, this model health, that just dropped in. So the options that are in there right now, best practice analyzer and memory analyzer, that brings in some pieces from external tools. So if you've used Tabular Editor or DAX Studio, it's essentially bringing some of the pieces from those tools right into the Power BI experience in there. So best practice analyzer, exactly what it sounds like, runs the standard rules against it. Memory analyzer is Vertipack analyzer. So it'll give you that same output. But if you click on one of these, it's going to launch you out to a notebook. I think on my next page. Yeah, let's see here. There we go. So you'll see it'll generate you a notebook. So it's going to spin up a notebook in your workspace. It's going to automatically write the code to connect to your semantic model. So you don't have to like learn Python or PySpark or anything to do this. It's going to get you right in there, generate everything. And then once you run it, it gives you some output that looks kind of like this. So it'll give you all your tables. You can see the options there. I've got it on the table view, but if you've got partitions, you can get that information, your columns, column temperature. So, is it been recently accessed? Is it in cache or not? And then also relationships and hierarchies. So same kind of stuff you can get from Vertipack Analyzer today, but you can get it right in your workspace, literally with a couple of clicks and, a minute of waiting. So pretty cool. Check that out if you haven't. With this one, it'll just give you the output inside the notebook. But if you dig a little deeper, there are ways that you can then take this. I think it's even a parameter in there now that you can do an export equals true, and you can dump it out to an attached lakehouse. So if you wanted to say capture your just model information over time, just do like a weekly snapshot. How big are my tables getting? What are my model health look like? It's really easy to dump that out to a lakehouse, connect it to a Power BI report, and you've got a deeper monitoring experience kind of right out of the box. So pretty cool. If you know anybody who's working in the government cloud, we hear from them a lot that, they lament that they can't use external tools or, extra plugins and things like that. So it's nice to see some of this stuff appearing right inside of the experience. And then also linked there in that same dropdown, there are community notebooks. So if you're curious about Semantic Link, which I know Ryan's going to talk about a little bit in a couple moments here, I think all of them right now, all of them in this screenshot at least, are from Michael Kowalski, who works for Microsoft. But you can see the topics there. So, just migrating models into Direct Lake, there's one for that. Connecting to the TOM, tabular object model, he's got one there. Just refreshing a semantic model. So now with, the different kinds of models that we can have out there, if you get into Direct Lake, there's now a whole concept of reframing in addition to refreshing, which is a whole other topic we could dig into. But they've put out some pretty impressive tools that you can do all this via code. So the nice thing, you get it in a notebook. You can call in, multiple models at once. You can schedule your notebooks to run. So there's a lot of automation that you can build into how you manage your environment, just using these notebooks as kind of a starting point. So even if you don't know Python, don't know PySpark, give it a try, check it out. There's all sorts of code snippets and there's things you can dive into. And now with Copilot as your help, there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do pretty quickly. All right, Power BI and DAX. So a couple kind of core updates there. This one got a pretty big cheer, but user-defined functions. So have you ever had to repeat a lot of code in your DAX and you thought, man, it'd be nice if I could just drop this into a function and just call it wherever I want? That's exactly what we're getting. So pretty cool there. Not to be confused with user data functions, which are a separate Fabric thing out there in the world. So maybe at some point they'll name these a little differently. But one of them is in the service, and it's a different data thing you can do. This is purely within your DAX. So there's a couple options here. I got a couple. Yeah, this is from the Marco Russo article as well. But if you've written any Python or anything, you'll recognize the notation there. So creating a new function, convert date to epoch, got the description, and then it's got the arrow notation and shows what it's going to do. So whenever you call that convert date to epoch, it's going to run that code against whatever date you feed it. Same thing there for converting an epoch to a date. And then here's kind of what it would look like if you were to call that. So in a measure, you would just call your function with your field in there to do your conversion. So yeah.
Is that stored in a separate spot inside the model, inside a report?
Question was, where is that stored? Answer, I don't know. I haven't dug that deep. I don't know if this one, I don't believe it's in public preview yet. Anybody know the answer to that? I don't think this one is. The user data functions just went into preview, but I don't know if this one's out there. But it's coming. I know there was a lot of chapters on seeing it sometime this summer, so we'll be able to get our hands on and give it a try. My bet is it lives in the model. That'd be my guess. But yeah, it's a way that you can sort of repeat that. So if you've got any consistent DAX logic, I know one of the other examples he called out was if you do like SVG visuals or things like that, you might have some custom code that instead of repeating it, you can just define it one time and then call it in anywhere you can use DAX. And they said you'll be able to use it in visual calculations, measures, calculated tables, columns, all that good stuff. So the other big one, custom calendars. So if you work on a fiscal calendar, like I know in my past retail life, we used the 4-4-5 kind of model. A lot of organizations have a different fiscal year than our standard kind of January to December. But there's going to be the ability, and again, I don't know a ton about this one because there was just some very quick demos, but the ability to define your custom calendar once in your model and then reference that definition. So you could just create a custom calendar, call it 4-4-5, and then you can bring that into the date logic in a couple different places. So again, I don't have a whole lot of hands-on with that one, so I can't share a lot, but another big announcement that got lots of people pretty excited. So, and then also the week time intelligence functions are coming as well. So like total week to date, dates week to date, that is something that's been missing. There's a lot of times you have to do kind of a workaround with your date table to get that kind of information in there. So that'll be fun. And I'm assuming that'll be defined on your custom calendar because not everybody agrees on when the week starts, but. Okay, oh yeah, I do have the one example from the screenshot about how he called the custom calendar fiscal 4-4-5 inside of that dates year to date function. So that's kind of what it'll look like. A couple quick notes on monitoring and Purview. So they got a bit of a refresh as well here, kind of late March and April. So the Purview Hub and feature adoption and usage and adoption reports got kind of a refresh. So if you're using those, you probably noticed they got a couple new visuals, kind of got reorganized a little bit. There's also a sharing report, which I've only spent a little time with, but it does have some interesting details in there. I think this is from my sandbox environment, so it's all me, but it gives you some interesting information about how many users have accessed. Screenshot's a little tough to see, but over on the right, how many users have accessed it, how many groups have access to it, so then the total that are getting into there. So it's a neat way to just get a quick snapshot of what things have been kind of shared and where access has been extended across your organization. So check that one out. Haven't spent a ton of time, but want to spend more in there. Then with Purview, a lot of chatter about data loss prevention policies being expanded. So there's some new options there. And then there was a lot about data observability. So this is one, I haven't gotten a lot of hands-on with this one, but inside of Purview, you can get a little more information about lineage. So both upstream and downstream on what's going on with your models, with your artifacts. And there's also some health checks that you can put in there as well. So if you have rules about, if there's X number of null fields or, different things like that, you can set up some flags to kind of bring problem data to the top for attention before somebody's got to point it out or go dig for it. Yeah.
Oh, real quick, the new content sharing report, where's that located? Is that like in the workspace, like out of the box where you hit the dots, or is it like in
the admin monitoring workspace with the other two?
Okay.
You have to enable it for that.
Yep.
Okay, yep. And then, so your admin can share it out. So they live in that workspace, they're canned, there's not a ton that you can customize with them today, but you can share them out to others that might need visibility to it. Yep. All right, I'm gonna hand it off to Ryan. Do you want to come up here or do you want to?
Yeah, I'll go up there.
Okay. You can share your slides though.
Sure. Set that. Yeah, I'm gonna type it on here too.
Okay.
You have the slides.
Yeah.
Just had it up. There we go. Okay, good beginning. It's freezing up for me. Start talking along with her. Yeah. Yeah, I'll try to switch back to yours.
So semantic link labs. So there are Python libraries you can access in the Fabric notebooks. There's over 450 functions right now, and they're adding more all the time. So a lot of these functions can help with some of the tedious tasks you do. For example, like updating report themes in the backgrounds. So if you have 80 reports, instead of going in one by one, you can just do it in a couple lines of Python. This example here is best practice analyzer. Brent touched on this a few minutes ago. We can do this all in notebooks and can schedule them in pipelines or automate it to run on many models in your different workspaces.
Does anybody here use semantic link for anything?
Awesome.
Yeah. It's mind blowing what they've built into there, and it's kind of fascinating because they presented it as they get so many requests for features and things like that, but there's only so much they can build right into the interface and into the tool. So they kind of said, essentially, if they see some cool stuff coming in as a request and they can build it in semantic link, they do it there first, and if it gets traction and people like it, then that's when they start to look at putting it back into the tool, into the interfaces, things like that. So it was fascinating.
Yeah.
Good session.
Oh, I love it. Glad.
Yeah, you can even run them in bulk. So you could just type in a workspace and it'll hit your different objects in the workspace instead of just doing it one by one. You can also translate semantic models, set report themes. I touched on that, and then refresh and deploy your semantic models. So you can do all that. A few lines of code, and you can even recover deleted lakehouse items. And then coming up, service principal support, workspace monitoring integrations, looking at usage, and then also the memory analyzer in bulk mode. Right now, you can use that, but just on one semantic model, but bulk mode is coming similar to, or where you just choose one workspace and then you can do them all at once. Then AI functions, I'll touch on this briefly, and then I have a short demo. These are all available in the Fabric notebooks. So this is using OpenAI, and you can translate, fix grammar, summarize, analyze sentiment, similarity, classify, extract, and then also generate. I'm going to pull up a notebook I have here. Take a look at how these work. So I have these all loaded in a notebook. I ran them all already just for sake of time, but just installing a couple of the OpenAI packages and then importing them. So I'll go through each function one by one. So the first one, similarity. I just set up a data frame here with Bill Gates and Microsoft, Mark Zuckerberg and Twitter, and Michael Jordan and the Minnesota Wild. So you'd expect Bill Gates and Microsoft to be the most similar, well, Michael Jordan and the Wild at least. So if you run this function, .ai.similarity, you can see similarity scores. Here we see the greatest number 85 or 0.85 for Bill Gates and Microsoft, and the lowest number 0.79 for Michael Jordan and Minnesota Wild. Then we also have the classify function. So just a couple of rows of data here. The first one, there's all text, the duvet. The second one is talking about measuring cups, and the third one is talking about a car. So you can use the classify function to pick your categories and then have AI categorize them. So you can see the first one, the duvet, is getting categorized in the bedroom, the measuring cups in the kitchen, and the brand new car in the garage. Another function, the sentiment analysis. So these might be reviews where the first line, never again, this is sounding negative. The second one, think it burned it all, would recommend it, sounds positive. Third one, talking about I'm torn on this, high quality, but didn't connect to my roommate's phone, kind of good and bad. And then the fourth one, the umbrella is okay, I guess. So you could run this function and add a sentiment column. So the first one's negative. Second one's positive. And then that third one, we get that mixed where it's good and bad. And then the fourth one was neutral. There's also an extract function. So we can see, we can tell it to extract the name, profession, and city. On this first line, for example, MJ Lee lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and works as a software engineer for Microsoft. You can see that it properly extracted the name, profession, and city. There's even the fixed grammar function. So there are an error here turns into there is an error here. She and me go way back. Used to hang out every week would turn into she and I go way back. Used to hang out every week. Even a summarize function. So it's doing just what you expect, summarizing longer text into shorter text. So for Microsoft Teams, instead of it being the ultimate messaging app for your organization, workspace for real-time collaboration and communication, meetings, file and app sharing, and even the occasional emoji all in one place, all in the open, all accessible to everyone. It summarizes it down to the messaging app for organizations, offers real-time collaboration, communication, meetings, file sharing, app sharing, emojis, and one accessible workspace. And there's also a translate, so translating between languages. So, hello, how are you doing today? I have this translating in Spanish here. Hola, ¿cómo estás hoy? Forgive me if that was bad. Also have it going in French. I won't try that one. And then the last one, probably one that most of you are more familiar with, if you've worked with ChatGPT, we can actually give it a prompt. So some of the items I have in here are products, so scarves, snow pants, ski goggles. And you can prompt it. For example, write a short, punchy email subject line for a winter sale. And for scarves, it response subject, stay warm and stylish with our winter scarf sale, and so on. So yeah, those are those AI functions. Those are all in notebooks, so to run your lake house, they're all accessible. You can schedule them in pipelines. Yeah.
Are those free then, or do you have to
On
have
a
a
paid
subscription?
You have to be on a paid SKU.
Yeah, so like you said, it's using OpenAI?
Yep, so I didn't have to sign into everything. Did initially try it on the free trial and that didn't work, but once you're on that F2 or higher, it's just, you can just.
You don't have to have an account or anything on OpenAI? or-
There was some guidance on starting small if you're trying these, because they can ramp up the CU. But
Yeah, that's where, did they give any idea of how to quantify CU, or is it just using like capacity metrics or something to track it?
yeah, nothing super specific, just capacity metrics.
Yeah, we just turned it on in our sandbox today, so we haven't looked at what we're consuming with these quite yet, but.
Do you have any links, informational links on this or suggestions, or just Google? To set something up, like I'm actually looking at sentiment analysis right now. That would obviously meet the need.
Yeah, could search the Fabric AI functions, or we can probably send out a link after this as well.
Thank you.
What is a semantic link?
The Python library. Yeah, so there's semantic link and semantic link labs. There's GitHub for both. But yeah, a lot of functions, too many for me to go through them all, but hoping to get into more of them here. Then jump back over. Haven't used one of these balls before. There we go. And then user data functions. So you can set these up to be used all across your Fabric environment. One pretty cool use case they showed at FabCon was on this report. So there's a data function built in where you could actually select a row in the table. And then in the bottom right there, you can actually use that as data entry. So you could update the assigned discount. I don't know if you can see that. You could click on a row in that middle table and then enter the new discount. And the data function would actually write back to the lakehouse. That seemed like a pretty cool use case, but though, yeah, those user data functions can be used across Fabric. Yeah, and then data agents preview. So this allows users to interact with the data naturally. Can connect to multiple data sources. So the semantic model, the lakehouse, and KQL databases. And then here's an example of that. So when it responds to a question, it'll actually give you the code it used, and you can train the data agents which source to look at, giving them example queries, things like that. Yeah, any questions on that piece?
I wanted to throw in for the user data functions. We just had the quick slide. I don't know if you can go back to that one, but that one, there's a couple of video demos that are out there. I think maybe even at Ignite last fall was the first time I saw it in a demo. But today, like if you want to do, like this is inside a Power BI report. And today, if we wanted to do something like this, it usually involves embedding a Power App, doing some Power Automate potentially. Like it's a lot of steps to it. It's a little wacky, and like your mileage may vary in terms of whether it does what you actually want it to do. When they did this demo, I mean, it was as easy as you click in a cell, you enter your data on the right, and it was within seconds. It would go through, it would update the value, it would recalculate your measures. So if you have any sort of scenario where you want to do like a write back or be able to modify a table kind of on the fly, there's some pretty cool potential stuff coming down the pipe on that one down the road. So it requires a little development overhead because you do need to know how to do that scripting behind the scenes and kind of build the function. But to do it all just natively within Fabric, within the tools, and not need to go out to the Power Platform or a third party. There's a couple third party tools out there that kind of do something similar. But yeah, definitely one not to sleep on. So I would check that out.
So related to that, so all the code's in Python, right? And so and then there's like your report layer right here. So like, is there like an actual visual where you kind of like call that Python code in here? Because like in Power, like to do this in Power Automate, you have to put the Power Automate visual as the component, right? Like, how do you sync that part in? If we don't.
Yes, I think that's what's in the bottom right, but
Okay.
he knows better than I. The user data functions are out there in preview today. Like you can go out and write those. And you can call, I think you can call them like with semantic link and some of those kinds of things.
Oh, sure.
But I haven't built one into a report yet.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm curious about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right. I think that's all we had for FabCon then. If anybody has any questions, like I said, I was, yeah, Kim.
I was wondering, does the data functions, could they potentially have a performance impact on the reports that they're embedded in?
I would imagine probably yes.
Maybe run separate.
It's, yeah, I mean, as soon as all the pieces are available end to end, I plan on jumping in and, just trying to build some of that out to see exactly that, like what kind of performance does it impact on the report, number one, but then what are you consuming on the back end too? I mean, I imagine it depends on how much data you're trying to pass back and forth. Like all the examples they did, it was essentially just updating a value back to a lakehouse table that then showed up back in the report. But if you did something a little more involved, if you log a text or something or a more involved calculation, I could see that being a little more intensive. Yeah. But yeah, any other questions on FabCon? Like I said, I was there, Ryan was there, Nick was there, so happy to chat more afterwards, or if you come to the social hour afterwards too, happy to chat more about it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jay Wardle. I'm the CIO for Our Brands. I've been on the board for about 6 years now, and so we're always looking for new content. So I will put that out there for anybody who wants to present a use case of that kind of thing. I actually had something interesting that I did. I was a consultant to Highbar back in the end of last year, beginning of part of this year, and actually had a project that I did in Power Automate, which, okay, we're usually talking about Power BI, but I thought maybe this is a close cousin, maybe for those of you who haven't actually dabbled in it, might be a way just to get a little taste of it and see kind of how somebody like with zero experience like I had can build something pretty well out of the gate. So anyway, that's what we're going to talk about today. Just how to get started and start experimenting and potentially create some value. So let me go over a little bit about what the situation was. Let's see if I can do it this way. There we go. So briefly, Highbar is a holding company of premium brands serving the heavy trucking parts industry. Still practicing that. So we make items like hitches, mud flaps, lighting, fenders, that thing for 18-wheelers and the like. So the situation was at the end of last year, they acquired a division of another company. The Betts company is the HD division, and so they were carving out that division and bringing them into Highbar. Betts was using an EDI provider. I'll get back to EDI in a second. Called Radley that was integrated into their ERP, and they were using that to exchange transaction documents with their key customers. Things like orders, shipping notices, invoices. I had somebody ask me, what is EDI? So for those of you not familiar, it's more of a manufacturing thing, but it predates the internet. And this goes back to the early 90s where, basically there was each document, an invoice had certain fields defined, and you can send it to a value-added network, and the value-added networks talk to each other, and you could exchange documents that way. So kind of sounds familiar, like what we have now, believe it or not, but it all still, it's easier to connect to it now, but it all kind of still runs the same, weirdly enough. So anyway, we needed to use the customers already connected to the EDI, so we needed to leverage that part of it, but we obviously had a different ERP being a different company. Highbar, at the moment, this unified EDI solution, that's a 2025 project. So what we said is like, let's just take the solution that they were using, break it off into our own tenant. We'll do some manual transactions between ERP and EDI, and then the part that works with the customers will stay the same. The customers won't see any. We'll have to do a little legwork, manual work over here. So they figured out the manual processes for the shipping part, but the invoicing got a little bit problematic. And then we got to the first of the year when we actually acquired them, and then it was like another month, and we still haven't quite figured out how we're going to do invoicing. So anyway, I was working on another part of the project, and they asked me to come on and see what we could do here. They were building an integration. They were building an integration, but that was a couple of months off. So they needed to kind of figure out something for an interim solution. So that was basically the use case. To generate an invoice, report from the ERP, and be able to manually put that into the UI of the EDI solution, and then send through the invoices just as it always was. And again, the goal was to keep the view to the customers seamless. Hang on one second, I'll put it in here. And so all that, and oh, by the way, I knew how to spell Power Automate, but other than that, I never really touched it. So anyway, so that's kind of the setup. So I'm going to kind of walk you through how I got there. So I thought, given that scenario, I was like, well, I've heard of Power Automate, I haven't even actually seen it in the wild kind of thing, but I'm like, that sounds like what it would do, right? So, so that's what we were going after. So basically, I designed a solution that, I made 5 separate flows, they call them, and ran them manually because, again, this was a stopgap. It was only going to really be live for a couple of months. And so the full automation running on a schedule wasn't needed. And really, you could do it once a week because you had like 30-day payment terms. So as long as we got it within, a couple of days, it was fine. But this gave me the most control over the whole thing, and allowed, given my level of knowledge, it allowed me to have the most flexibility to make sure it all ran correctly. Okay. So I went from 0 to hero with 4 YouTube videos, like we all do, how we learn stuff. So literally just was like Power Automate, Excel to web form, and this guy popped up. He gave very simple, succinct, very like, I see the example you're running through, very good at explaining them. So I literally just kind of watched these 4, probably a couple other ones, but that got me started really. So, I was able to pretty quickly spin up and get to the solution here. So this is the first prototype I built. So before I actually committed to it, I'm like, well, can I even do this thing? So before I, talked to my client and said, hey, I think this might be a way to fill a gap. Like, let me see if I can play with it here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull up Power Automate. I'll give you a quick introduction to the actual app. So give me a second here while I flip over to that. So here are the apps. I'm just going to go and start a new one, just to show you a couple things, just sort of how the screen is laid out and things like that. I will say, you're noticing it's saying loading. If you thought Power BI was a memory hog, this thing it takes forever to save a file or whatever. So, at any rate, nice beefy machine is pretty handy. So over here on the right, basically the center part here is where you drop your code snippets, whatever you want to call it. But it's a total low-code environment. So you see right here all the different sort of built-in functions they have, if you will. I'm not sure if I'm using the right terminology, but I'll just go into Excel here, and you can kind of see, like, you can launch an Excel. You can say, I want to use this Excel that's running on my screen, which we're going to show here in a minute. Get the first free column or row in an Excel worksheet. I use that all the time to say this was the range I want to grab for the thing. And then allowed you to say, what is the column number? And then you can use that as a variable to translate. So at any rate, and then you can just search up here. And so again, those videos really kind of taught me a lot, just how to what the commands were. So you really kind of get very quick on this pane here. And then you just drag something over, like we're going to launch an Excel, and then ask you, do you want a blank one, or do you want to open a different one? What's the document path, stuff like that. So again, no low code kind of thing, no code. And you're able to run it. So that's kind of the basics of the interface. I'm going to walk you through a little bit one that was built. Let me flip over to that. So here's the one I built. Basically, the scenario was I had a list of names and addresses. I've anonymized it for this scenario. I'm like, can I just make a Microsoft form? Because that's a web form with boxes, right? I'll just make a Microsoft form survey and say, can I go from here to there, here to there, here to there, here to there? Okay, let's try that. So, basically, this guy teaches you to set variables. So my variable file is, here's the file I was using. Next variable is, here is the URL that I wanted to use. So we're going to use that. And then attached to a running Excel, as I mentioned ago. So basically it's a, there's a way to, you can launch it and you can launch the file. I found it actually easier, especially when you're testing and iterating, just to have it open and say, just use the one that's open. You just have to say what the file is of it. And then it makes a variable called Excel instance. I disabled this one. This was something I was using. Otherwise, you can enable and disable things as you're testing things. Then you read from the Excel. And again, here I said A1 to G11. But again, you can use variables to find the empty cell, subtract 1, that kind of thing, and say, this is the range. Ironically, it doesn't allow you to say read table 1. Like that would be super handy. But you do have to define the range. But you can do that with a couple of pretty easy steps. And then we're going to launch the launch edge with that form. And then it's just a for each loop. So then I will open this up 1 second. So the value to iterate. So it opens the Excel, then it reads the data of that range I said into a cache called Excel data. And then that's the data it's going to use. And then stores it into, and then it iterates each line into what's called current item, runs through the for each loop, goes to the next one, and kind of does it that way. So it, and again, you just like literally drag over, you search for 4 in the thing, drag it in, and it throws open the boxes you need to do that. So then you just go through and you say each field for that current item, you select the field name, first name for the first one. And then UI element is kind of cut off there, but that's the first name field on the form. So you're saying, give me the first name out of the Excel, put it in the first name on the form, and that's it. And then you kind of go through and you do them all. So, anyway, that's really, I know I went through that really quickly, but just gives you a flavor. And then that's the whole thing. And I was like, hey, I just built an app kind of thing. So let's watch it run. I did, like the cooking shows, I already have one in the oven, so I'm just going to run a video of it and show you that I did earlier, and show you that so that I wouldn't have to. Okay, so again here, just to orient you what you're looking at on the screen. On the left is the web form, on the right, or in the middle is the table of data, and on the right is that app, that code that I used. So I'm going to go ahead and start it, and you'll see it as it kind of runs through and iterates. And it actually highlights it as it goes down. And you can see Daniel Johnson is going to go through, fill it all in, and just runs through. It's going to then click submit here in a second. Number submit, and then there's this. It went kind of by quickly, but there's a submit another response button on that page. So that's the link it clicks. And then that finishes the for each loop. Now it's going to go through and do the next one, do the next one. I don't think I have run through all of them. I have run through a couple of them. But wildly satisfying. I can't tell you, when you first build it, I'm watching it, I'm like, hey, I got this thing doing work here. I'm just sitting here watching it. So at any rate, that, gave me the confidence to say, yeah, okay, this is a viable concept. Like in probably just a couple hours, again, learning the tool and everything. All right, I got something that's working, So, of course, the devil's in the detail once you get into a real system and real data that, like the professor said, like, well, yeah, that's not all perfect data, and you got issues with it. We all know that, right? So that was the next challenge. That's what I'm going to show here in a minute is what I actually ran into when I went to build the app. So I'm just going to stop that for now. I don't think that's, yeah, okay. There's nothing else really there to see. You get the idea. That was it. So that's our first demo. Now we're flipping over to the real world, and we gotta get from system A to system B. A lot of similarities, but the data structure differently. It's all sort of over the place, and so really, what I found, and this was a lesson learned, we'll hit on at the end, that doing the power automation was one thing. Like I said, that was actually kind of easy. Getting the data right, just to be able to have that one Excel sheet to, put in the right spot, that became a whole bigger challenge. And this is another reason why I thought this would be interesting for this group. I can walk through some of the data challenges I had and how I went about them. So So at any rate, yep, so let's go on to the next slide here. So the first problem was common keys, two completely different systems not talking to each other. So how are we going to tie these two systems together? So what I found is that the shipping department, when they were making the shipment in the EDI system, they were putting in the sales order number from the ERP in there. So like, okay, now I got the same number in two places. So now I got something to work with, right? So you can see that on the bottom of the top image, that's where they were keying it in, and the lower right, is the invoice report I used. And because you're all data people, I know you're saying, hey, those numbers match, Jay. I know, I just grabbed a couple of screenshots. Stay with me on the content. So now it's just like, hey, I just need a report of something that has those two fields on it. Guess what? That doesn't exist. So, and oh, by the way, we don't have an API or anything. We're not really, again, this were systems that are built in the 90s and blah, 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 right? So I'm like, all right, I just need two pieces of data, right? I need them side by side, two pieces of data. So, nothing exists. So that's my first automation. So the first thing I did was actually went the other way. I'm like, go into the system and give me these two pieces of data side by side, because they're literally on that top screen there. At the very top, the second column there, or second row is the shipper number that I needed, and the bottom is the sales order. So that was the first real Power Automate I did, which actually was nice because that's about as simple as what I just did, maybe even simpler in some ways. So it's a good place to cut my teeth, if you will. And again, if I go into my magic video file here, I will show you how that actually. The get sales order number was our first issue, and good boy. Come on, this is bad. Let me check one more spot here. Ah, there it is. Okay. Shoo. All right. Always have the actual file on your PC. You never know what's going to happen, right? So again, so the in the middle, ignore. I'm not sure why I brought my file explorer, but anyway, you see it running now. So what it's doing is it's grabbing most left here in the column. I'll use my mouse so people online can see it. So it's running through and saying, grab this shipper number, put it right there. That's the start of it. Drop it in that box. You actually had to go to a second screen because I needed the second tab where that sales order number was. So go to this TP specific screen here. Let me look at it this way. Do it one more time. And then grab that sales order number and do it there. So now let me go back 1 second there. So you saw, one of the things I wanted to point out is that you saw where, get rid of that on my screen. Here. There. So I got this error. It said, hey, you tried to look this up, but there's another problem with this order somewhere on the backside. So it bombed out, right? So that's why I kept it all manual, because stuff like this would happen. It had nothing to do. So I would just like take that out of the list, have customer service research that one separately, and then I could just continue on. So it's that was, and eventually if you really to put this into production, you would find stuff like that, but this stuff is brittle. You kind of need to babysit a little bit. So now we flip back to Shift F5, by the way, everyone, is how you launch into a presentation at the slide you're on. So anyway, quick tip there. All right, so the second problem I had was what I call blended and lost. Basically, the sales order was a common key because you can have multiple shipments and multiple invoices on one sales order. And so while you have many shippers to one sales order and many invoices to one sales order, there is a one-to-one match, but you're trying to go through this thing that, okay, you see it, right? So how do we actually figure that out? So had to noodle on that over and over. And so what I came up with was developing a composite key, because what I found is that while you can have multiple shipments on an order, they didn't ship multiple times in one day. So I'm now taking the date and then pulling those two together, just concatenating them with a dash in the middle. I now had a key I can use. And similarly, they invoiced on the same day. And so, that gave me the same key. Okay. Now, shoot, good, got that problem solved. Until I didn't, because now the next problem was that occasionally we invoice the next day, or maybe the next day when we were first starting off. So they may not actually match. So I had a bunch that didn't match, and I just found it was off a day or so. So basically now it's like, okay, well, how are we going to resolve this one? So this is where I use the technique. One is at the Red Wing Shoes. One of the developer on my team, Sherry Johnson, and this thing's called look back dates. And so what it allowed you to do is a technique that you can look at different dates, and basically I just subtracted 1 and then 2 from the date to create those unique keys, and then tried them in succession, right? So again, I didn't build a data model. This ended up being all in Excel, which was a mistake, because as I got into it, all these data problems, I should have had a data model. So, but again, it was temporary. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go, gold plate this thing. So that's what it does. It looks and says, is it on the ship date? Nope. Okay. Is it on the date -1? Nope. Is it on 2? Nope. If not, then just return a blank. Now you could say, well, you go 3, 4, 5. It's like, well, at a certain point, you're fuzzy matching. You might actually get some false positives. So by doing 2 days, it actually got me a good portion of those ones that didn't fraud. So there's still some that I think one was like 15 days off. I'm like, just send it to customer service, let them figure it out. So that allowed me to get, again, a lot of the matching. So the fourth problem I mentioned in the beginning was you have one invoice, but it could have 1, 2, 3 lines, maybe even, I think one had 9. So now I got to figure out, well, I only want to update the ship date once, but I could have 1 to 9 different lines. And how did you do that? So, somebody much more experienced at this could probably fit it all into one flow. The solution I came up with was like, let's break it into 2 flows, one to update the header and one to update the lines. And then I used some Power Query just to basically take the raw data and make me 2 data sets where, I eliminated duplicate invoice numbers or shipper numbers. That's because I only needed to do it once. And then I did another one for just the line data, but I started with the same raw set of data, just 2 different output tables that allowed me to do that. So let's do the final demo. So this is actually now how I went into the production system after I tested the living daylights out of it and updated it. So here are the invoice numbers that are in the Radley system. This is the Acumatica or the ERP invoice here. And then it's going to run through my program and put this data into and update the invoices. The other thing, column H here, what I found was super handy is there's also a function in Power Automate to grab current date and time and then drop it in a cell. So what I did is I said, hey, look to that column just to the right. And at the end of each for next loop, okay, I've updated that one. Now just throw a timestamp on there, because that then allowed me, when things bombed out, I knew exactly where it stopped, right? It's like, okay, you've sent this one, you had a problem on the next one. So I know where I need to fix that. So that was a super handy thing as well, to have some. And then as well, I have a whole table of auditability. When did I update the header? When did I actually send it through to the customer and that kind of thing? So it really created a nice audit trail for that. So final video. This one works. Update header. Now this one, I was threw in a dialog box because I had two different customer codes. So I just threw in this dialog box just so I could enter in which customer code I was working with. And I also threw up a couple of other, informational dialog boxes to tell me, hey, make sure you have the file open and make sure you have the website open to the right page. And so, which, I thought I was going to write this for somebody else to do, but because I ended up just running it, I was like, I use it all the time. Like, oh yeah, that's right. So that allowed me to do it. And then that's just what we're doing here. So we're going through and we're grabbing that invoice number from the Radley system, the EDI system, and then going into there and updating with the ship date and the invoice number from the ERP system and putting that in there. So, yeah, I just did a couple here, but we did it that way. So then that's basically it. There was one for the lines. I didn't bother recording that one, but that basically got us through and got the solution and sort of solved the immediate problem that we had. So let me go back over the PowerPoint here. So what was the result? Result was excluding the time of the data wrangling and all those problems I ran into. And we would have needed to do that anyway. The prototype time, because me coming up to speed, but I really kind of pulled it together in 20, 25 hours, to really get the thing functioning. So, so if you kind of take those things out of it, it was pretty quick, come up to speed. It was able to fill a gap and do a catch up in a temporary process. And that was ended up being about 3 months of invoice data. And this was, if not their largest, one of their very largest customers. And it literally represented about 2% of their annual sales. So if you can imagine how much cash that is to a company, and you all know your finance departments, they're like, no, we want to, either be making interest on it or, that kind of thing. And so to not have that cash coming in was just a huge, huge deal for them. So, so anyway, so it ended up being about, because you have multiple lines and multiple header or one header, multiple lines, I estimated there's probably about 700 lines and maybe on average about 7 fields that needed updated for each line. So, okay. So it's literally 4,900 different data elements that needed to be updated and sent, 100% accurate, right? Because you're dealing with money and that kind of thing. So it really, pretty quickly got us through the solution right away. So what did I learn? So Power Automate can fill a gap between two systems where full integration maybe isn't on the book. So again, they were writing an integration, but it was a little bit off. But I saw things all the time at Red Wing Shoes when I was there. Where it's like, hey, I see the project you need to make these two systems talk to each other. It's just never going to get prioritized. So, but this might be a solution where, hey, you might be able to put something together. So, like I said, it is brittle, can fail. You got to run it manually, non-connected. So do it in pieces and parts because you'll drive yourself crazy. But if you do that and you kind of get all the kinks worked out of the system, I think eventually you could schedule it. Just get it fully automated and run on schedule. Knowledge of HTML is helpful. So if you're doing one where you are using a web UI, you should just be able to say, this is where the box I want, and right click and control right click, and say this is the field I want. Didn't always work for whatever reason. So you needed to go in and spec the page and get that deep down into HTML code. I'm like, what am I looking at here? I'm a data guy. But I did have a friend who does testing automation, web testing automation. And so I was like, hey, help me out here. It's the same thing. So helpful to have a friend on call. This next one, be aware of software vendors making changes. Didn't come into play here, but when I was at Red Wing Shoes, unbeknownst to, I was leading the data team there, and unbeknownst to us, we had somebody build an automation off of a Power BI report. And I don't know if you've all noticed, but Microsoft tends to change Power BI every month. So they would make a change to the UI and all of a sudden their thing would break and they'd call us like, well, hey, the thing isn't working. I'm like, what is it? I didn't even know you built it off of that. And oh, by the way, I wouldn't have recommended that. There's better ways we could have got you that data, but that's another story for another day. And then don't underestimate the efforts of getting the data right. Probably don't need to tell this group that, but Again, if I would have known how many data challenges I would have had, I would have more built a model instead of a hacked together series of spreadsheets that I kind of kept limping along. And again, I knew it wasn't gonna, it was only gonna be a couple months or whatever, so I just let it go and dealt with it. And then for, those in the room, I think, again, I used to lead the data team at Red Wing Shoes. I think this is a great skill for you all to add to your quiver of arrows, if you will. Because there's some real problem solving you can solve with that. I mean, it's great to be able to say like, hey, here's the analysis and that kind of thing. And it's like, that's good. We can make better decisions or, that kind of thing. But this is like, no, I can save you like, 20 hours a week or something by just making these little things happen here. And to the bullet above it, you have all the other skill sets to get the data right, because somebody who's just doing Power Automate, they might not know how to do all the little gymnastics or that I did, and maybe build a proper model and things to get the data right in the first place. So I would really just recommend, hey, go out there and do the same thing I did. Grab an Excel form or Excel sheet, grab Microsoft Forms and just start hacking away at it and make yourself something. So I think it's pretty handy. So so that's the last is just dive in and try it. And like I said, it's quite satisfying to just see that thing run while you're sipping a beer and watching it get all the sales order numbers, and I'm just having them on the table, and I'm just like, okay, you keep going. And it could be a career difference for you. So, all right. I just had that from leftover. So that's it. Questions? Mr. Brent.
Do you have to get any additional licensing or anything to go along with Power Automate, or was that just using the basic?
Great question. It was all just the Power Automate desktop, and if you have, just about any version of Microsoft Office. In fact, I used, I only have like, this is when I was consulting. I just had like, not the basic version, but the next level up, like Microsoft Standard, like $150 a year or whatever. Like I had everything I needed.
All right, so it looked like a very mundane process. And how much time did you save? How much money you think you saved by building the solution, right? Because it looks like maybe, one person had to go through like the Excel sheet, the form or whatever else, just to double check, maybe have another screen open, look at the data cross-reference, right? So, I mean, how much time do you think you saved, number one? And number two, how much money do you think you saved?
Hard to say money. Because you're gonna pay those people anyway. Yeah, I know, I understand. So you're gonna pay those people anyway. It's not gonna lay anybody off or hire somebody because of this little thing. But they probably, if I spent 20 hours kind of hacking that thing together, I could see somebody doing at least 100, 200 hours kind of, doing this thing and getting it wrong, right? Like, oh, wait, I was on this line. No, you know what I mean? And that kind of thing. So, and again, it really wasn't about saving money. It was more about increasing the velocity of that cash flow coming in.
Oh, no, something, yeah.
That's the big win. Yeah. Once I told the CFO, like, hey, by the way, I just didn't waste, dollars. He was like, okay, that's very helpful, handy. Thank you. Other questions?
4,900 data lines. That's a lot of potential errors.
700 lines, 7 elements. So yeah, 4,900 data elements. Yeah, exactly.
That's a lot of potential errors that you have reliability in.
Right. I mean, your eyes are going to glaze over, like,
Not mine.
I know, we're data people. I can stare at rows and columns all day. What do you have to say?
So you said it'd be nice if you could read data from a table. And I thought to myself, I think I've seen that before. And you just, when you're reading data from Excel, you just choose a named range or a named, instead of reading.
I tried that, and I want to say I did, and it just, I could not get it to work, but
I
it's okay.
tested it out. I think I got it. So
Okay.
anyway, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but I might be right. And then the other thing is my use case was, when I was director of finance at a multi-unit Dairy Queen franchisee, we had to send out like budgets and goals PDFs for 250 units. And I was like, so help me, I'm not sending 250 emails out of my Outlook. So I had an Excel spreadsheet, and it would pull our metadata table for every location out of a SQL table, loop through all of that, creating this PDF for every restaurant, and then fire off 250 emails out of my Outlook.
Yeah.
And so that was my big time saver, was like, I'm not sending 250 emails each with a specialized attachment. And so that's another use case you can probably.
Yeah, great.
I've actually dabbled something similar with Excel and Power Automate, but in the cloud.
Mhm.
And they have a nice function called like get tables. But the problem is that sometimes it won't return if there's way too many rows.
Oh,
It's been an interesting limitation I've noticed in the cloud. But I mainly have all the Excel files in OneDrive.
yeah, that was one thing is that, you guys have all experienced this, like, there's this weird, like, close your eyes, Bill, but, it's like, there's a weird thing where like, for some reason, like, they want you to be in SharePoint and in the cloud and all that, but like this, I could only get to work, like, if it was on my laptop. It's like, okay, well, can we just, like,
Well, I can see that because of the web component, you need the web to be working as part of your job, it looked like, so. I mean, you had other case scenarios, but you need to kind of have something driving. The web
yeah, but I
browser.
mean, you would think it'd be able to say like, okay, for the Excel component, call this HTTP Excel, blah, 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 and then read that data into my cache and then run it through.
Well,
So,
another thing too, which I think gets very mixed up is that, if you're running it in the cloud, how would it know to kind of like get into your intranet if it's private or not, you know what I mean?
well, I'm not saying for the solution in cloud, I'm just saying being
Oh,
able to
right.
access a Excel file in my SharePoint.
Oh, yeah, that should be like, yeah, easy, yeah, that's easy.
Couldn't get it to work. It wanted on, I needed. to
Oh,
download
right,
it.
right.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I see your original question.
The authentication always blocks me when I try to use it. So always something that trips you up.
Well, it's funny, one more thing too, like PowerShell can handle a lot of that Excel stuff pretty easily. There's other like modules and stuff, but like just just minimum, you could just read like the com file for like Excel and you could use like native things, but that's the thing too, you could just read a table,
Yeah.
right? And,
Well, and that's the thing is I had never really done.
oh, no, I'm not saying you should, I'm just saying
Yeah.
like that, should be a
Yeah.
thing on Power Automate.
Oh, they should, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Would you have again? Or do you have something else?
I kind of came with a Power Automate experience from kind of a beginner and I was just reading Microsoft Learn, like maybe like 3 hours each day. Just staring at it and it's like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah.
And just a lot of forum articles I've read from lots of people in the.
Yeah, it's, for me, I didn't have the patience to do that, so congratulations, but so that's where I'm like, just show me some YouTube videos, let me see how far I get. So. Anybody else? Go ahead.
How much error handling did you have to build in? Because it seems like it basically locks up your computer to do this. So, Windows likes to pop up random little things. Like, how much did you have to handle? Oh, if this pops up in front when it's supposed to be moving this data over here.
Funny enough, there was one where, I can't remember which one it was, but you would click OK and it would pop up another dialog box to say, whatever, and there was an OK button in that box. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna like, and I looked in, double clicked the command and we clicked advanced. And it's like, if an OK dialog box pops up, what do? Click OK. Like literally, it was like there's built into it. So, again, it was kind of weird that it's running on the desktop because it's really hard to actually stop it because it's literally putting the cursor and you're trying to go over and say stop, and it keeps going back. But once you get it built, you can do a runtime version of it, and there just goes on a little window, so it looks like your desktop. It's not actually your desktop. But I just never got that far because, again, it was a temporary solution.
Yeah, there's other ways to run unattended Power Automate desktop as well. So you
You
can
can run it totally in the cloud.
yeah, you can do them in Cloud Flows and run it as a desktop job. So still run the desktop process that he's put together that's actually literally going and clicking stuff, but it will run unattended in a Cloud Flow. You can do that as well. Yeah, I'll throw documentation in the chat if anybody cares.
Thank you. Anything else?
Now you've gone through 0 to hero. If you have to do it again, right, will you do it the same way or you think there's a better way? One of us wants to try it out.
A couple things I would have changed, definitely figuring out the data first and doing a better model of that, so I didn't have to keep hacking together spreadsheets. That would be one. The other one is, I was just thinking about on the drive in, for updating the header, just, breaking those into 2 flows. there really was only 2 fields. I could have just had to redo that each time, when I did the automation. So I could have just gotten away with 1, which actually would have simplified things in a number of different ways. So it's things like that, but it's one of those ones where you kind of got to get into it. It's like, oh yeah, then you see the improvement opportunities, but you kind of make a design, you go with it. Anyone else? All right, my work here is done. Let's go drink.
I'm gonna stop our recording now, and that, we should actually see that, posted at some point in the next couple of days here. So if anybody's curious or wants to share it with colleagues, you can do that. Yeah, thanks, everybody.